Welcome, everyone, to Wizards and Warp Drives, the podcast where two grown-ass men get deeply nerdy about the things they love. My name's Nacho, and joining me, as per usual, is Mr. AJ Pickett.
How's it going?
Mighty glue stick.
Oh, that's right.
That's okay. Yeah, good.
I'll answer to that.
I'm good. I'm good, thanks, mate. I might be a little bit hoarse. I did 12 hours of D&D, Hero Quest, D&D, back to back to back.
Jeez.
So a lot.
We're walking the walk as well as talking the talk. We are gamers. That is true.
Yeah, we are. Yeah, I gave my. I think I told you in the Discord. I built a beholder tank for my players.
Mm-hmm.
And I put an instability mechanic into it, which backfired on me. They basically used it as a bomb. I wasn't expecting them to use it that way. So there's a way that they could blow it up. It was designed to sort of put a little bit of add some tension to the encounter, but they decided to use that to take out the big bad. So they just drove it into a frost giant skeleton and then let it explode and teleported out of it.
If players can turn something into heavy ordnance in the game, in a fantasy game, they will. Yeah.
So, give your players a tank and.
About the only limitation I've ever found with players and weapons is, can I carry this? That's about it.
Yeah. How's your week been, mate?
Good. I've been slowly getting back into the creative cycle of things after a bit of disruption there. And I've been playing a lot of Magic the Gathering Arena because free. You don't have to spend any money on it. It's fast. Like it's your average game is about 6 to 10 minutes, so you can throw it in between. Like a little reward for doing your work. That's how I reward myself sometimes, is I have a little bit of a game. That's why I'm not like a long format. Yeah. Like most of the games that people play or recommend to me take a long time to play. Like they're talking 120, 80 hours or something like that to play it all the way through. I just want to like play a game of cards or tic-tac-toe. I'm that sort of a guy. I'm just like, I don't have time to waste gaming. That's like a little reward, a little endorphin hit, and then I'm moving on to my next thing.
I find that with video games as well. I like a video game I can finish in 6 to 10 hours, but some of these ones that take hundreds of hours, like Baldur's Gate 3, I've put 60 hours in that, and I don't even think I've left the first level.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Yeah, I got to the middle tower bit of that, and I'm just like, oh man, is there a way to skip to the city of Baldur's Gate? Am I ever going to get to Baldur's Gate? Where is Baldur's Gate? I don't believe this. The game is.
I'm just running around the Undermountain getting in fights. Yeah. Accidentally triggering encounters. Ryan Doyle, a friend of the podcast, recommended another podcast to me called Dungeon Masters. Have you heard of this?
No.
So I'll read you the synopsis. It's a audio drama by David Kushner that delves into the investigation behind the Satanic Panic. John Hamm stars as private investigator William Dare, and Will Wheaton plays Gary Gygax. The series explores the real-life case of Dallas Egbert, a college student who disappeared, fueled by fears of Dungeons and Dragons and Satanism. It's actually really cool. So it's an audio drama. It's only about 30 minutes. I think 2 episodes are out. I've only listened to the first. But what it does is it does this really cool... it uses dice mechanics in the story. So like when he goes to the guy's college room who's missing, Dallas, what's his name? Dallas Egbert.
Mm-hmm.
And John Hamm's like investigating the room, and then you hear a voiceover go, he rolls an investigation check, and then you hear some dice, and it's like, he gets a 1, and then he picks up this monster manual, and he's like, what is this book? It looks satanic. Like...
For those of you at home, that's a style of fiction called RPG lit, where you incorporate game mechanics into the actual story that you're reading, and it's becoming more and more popular, particularly with old guys like me and you writing stories now. Cool. Yeah. That also sounds like the Tom Hanks Mazes and Monsters was focused on same sort of period of events. Yeah.
That's
interesting. Will Wheaton as Gary Gygax. That got my attention.
He hasn't come into it yet. He's doing this. I think he must be doing the narrator as well, but they haven't introduced Gary. I've only listened to one episode.
Right.
And John Hamm's like this. He thinks everyone in the 70s is like rock and roll, drug smoking Satanists. That there's something wrong with his son because he wants to play chess rather than come out hunting. I don't know much about William Deal or how true it is, and he's kind of like a celebrity private investigator. He's so famous that he made a cameo on BJ and the Bear. I don't know if you remember that show.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I heard of it. Yeah. To be fair, at that age, around that time, early 80s, I was going hunting with my dad, and yeah, he saw that I wasn't really that into it.
No, but my dad, I grew up on a farm as well. My dad tried to teach me how to fire a gun, and I ended up dislocating my shoulder. So yeah,
I don't think it was anything on my part. Like I was keen to go out hunting with Dad, but he just wasn't into it anymore. I don't think he was just too knackered from work, and he had other ways of putting meat on the table. So yeah,
it's a Kiwi thing.
Yeah,
we are rangers.
Also, there's not a lot of riveting father-son conversation that goes on when you're stalker hunting, because you've got to be quiet the entire day. So it's like bonding silently with your dad is what it should be called, with bugs and mud.
My dad taught me about sex. So my mum, I think, thought I was masturbating. She asked my dad to have the conversation with me. And then
too much soap is going missing from the bathroom.
He just made me watch two horses fuck in the farm and go, "Oh, that's sex, mate."
Wow.
Yeah.
And I felt inadequate for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Anyway, what is the topic of this week's podcast?
The topic's you, mate.
Okay.
So
let's segue smoothly from horses fucking to my career.
Well, not so much your career. I thought we would talk about monsters. I can't do a podcast with the monster guy and not have an episode about monsters and get his opinions on monsters, especially with 5th edition winding down. We're about to get a new monster manual. Your channel's kind of, the secret of its success is a lot to do with monster ecology, I want to say. I mean, you would know more than me.
Yeah.
So I thought I'd just ask you a series of questions. I'm going to take a back seat and let you do most of the talking today,
okay,
which is good. So, So
I'll carry this episode, Mr. Frodo. I'll carry you to the top of Mount Doom. Potatoes.
Thanks,
okay, let's go.
Am I Frodo in this scenario?
You are Master Frodo. That's true. Yeah.
Okay.
You're burdened with the ring.
I am. No, I'm the one that's married. So
that's right.
That's true in many ways. I know my wife doesn't listen to this, so I can say that. All right. So your channel goes beyond just stats and abilities, exploring the lore and behavior of these creatures. Why do you think it's important to explore the ecology and culture of D&D monsters?
Because it's a storytelling game. So lore for me is the story behind the monster. And it's really interesting to me because I'm into biology and art, both of which study and observe nature. So biology is one of the key aspects that I really like about when I look at an exotic monster. I can't help but think of how it fits into the environment. Like I am that annoying prick who goes, how does that thing sustain itself in level 6 of this dungeon? There's no water for a creature this large. I'm the one who is putting 2 and 2 together.
Yeah.
And so I recognize that need in people to bring a little bit of realism to fantasy, not too much, just plausible enough, Yeah, because when you really get down to the nitty gritty of it, could a Remoraz or something like that support its own weight? Probably not. There's no hard radiation in Dungeons and Dragons, for instance. So materials like adamantine and things like that, you explain them other ways. And yeah, that's where I fit into this. The science of the improbable is where I dwell. And yeah, it just so happens that that's the format that's the most interesting to listen to when you're driving a car or at your job and don't have to listen to something else. You can just put on a podcast or something like that. And that's the way that most people have been absorbing my content for years.
Do all goblins sit around a table playing cards when adventurers aren't?
Yeah. I
Because they
always
do in my
yeah,
games.
they're more like a craps.
Yeah.
Yeah, they definitely do. Like goblins are the things that just gravitate towards whatever small animal is there, and then they just torture it and make a game out of it until the noise deal, until it's done. That's their natural behavior. It's like a cat,
Yeah.
playing with something that it's predated on. And goblins just gravitate towards survivalist tactics, like they will drink pee out of preference, you know. So
Mm.
they're always like the most disgusting thing I can think of is their day to day hygiene and stuff like that. They're just born like the cockroaches of humanoids.
Yeah. That's. I've been listening to a lot of it because I'm running a water deep under mountain hybrid game, and in my game, Xanathar wants to oust the open lord of Waterdeep and basically take the residents of Skullport above the Undermountain. Like, we deserve to live above ground, and this city shouldn't belong to these predominant races. So
Mhm.
I've been listening to a lot of your videos just to get that, that culture. That's the big evil plan in my one. Is he's basically promising all these. He's trying to rally troops in the Undermountain to say, hey, if we all get together, um, we can take this fucking place, and they can live down here.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
yeah, which
In
is
in many
yeah,
ways, my channel is aimed at dungeon masters more than players. I think that's one of the reasons why it's not bigger than it is because it's a closely guarded secret of a lot of dungeon masters that they just listen to
mm,
my videos to do their game prep. I'm fine with that. I'm perfectly happy being the secret weapon that a lot of people rely on because it's good views for me, And I don't, for that reason, I don't chase after any other sort of content. I don't do the drama and stuff like that behind the scenes sort of thing. So you can just come to my videos when everybody else is raving about the latest drama.
yeah.
I'm that steady source of just Dungeons and Dragons content.
That's what most of my YouTube videos are. Like, I avoid those. I think I have one that just does the news. I listen to
Mm,
the character sheet, which I think does a daily news, but I think they do that in about 10 minutes, and that kind of just gets me up to speed. But
yeah, I'll
I
catch
prefer.
up with Ted from Nerd Immersion. Generally,
Mm, yeah. Okay. Yes, it is. It is really good. It helps you just make these monsters more than just one tone bad guys that just say generic things like which is how they're kind of written in a lot of books.
yeah, they don't really talk enough about where they are, what impact they have on the environment,
Mm,
what their attitude towards other races and stuff is, how they interact with things like your economy and stuff like that. Like if there's a big band, if there's any goblins in your world, then if there's goblins, then there's hobgoblins, and
yeah.
hobgoblins are quite a major deal because they're a militarized, uh, mobile force that can turn up anywhere really. And when
Mm,
they turn up, they generally do war with other people because that's what they're all about, even more so than orcs.
yeah.
But also they have a society, so you can deal with them. Like you can actually cohabitate with hobgoblins a lot better than orcs in many ways.
Baldur's Gate 3 also did really well with exploring monster motivations. I felt
Mm-hmm.
really fleshed that out.
I like there was scope for Larian Studios to, instead of handing off the game and it just basically staying stagnant, handing it off to another game development company that they would have developed in tandem with Wizards of the Coast. So Larian would have been hired on as consultants to set up the gaming company within Wizards of the Coast. So instead of getting the Wizards of the Coast executives to set up a gaming company within their existing thing, get Larian in to set up a copy of Larian staffed by Wizards of the Coast to keep developing Baldur's Gate 3. That's what they
Mm,
should have done. And given them all guaranteed 10-year contracts, the creatives, and said, "Look, you're not going anywhere. You have to work on this game and keep developing it." So they would have developed like the Underdark, they would have developed Waterdeep, they would have
mm,
developed the entire Sword Coast, the Moonshae Isles, active adventures in the far north, prison breaks from that Citadel place that they invented for the movie.
mm,
All this other stuff they could have easily have developed whole big storylines involving like faraway distant lands like Thay and stuff. When they first developed Dungeons and Dragons, when Ed Greenwood was first publishing this stuff, there wasn't Karatur and there wasn't Massacre and all that sort of stuff tacked onto it. That came into it later. There was just Cormier and the sort of the central kingdoms around the Sea of Fallen Stars, which is also the kingdom of Ceros. Don't forget there's aquatic races and stuff that live there as well. So you got a full-on above ground, below ground, above water, below water dichotomy, like this whole situation of these three different civilizations which were recovering from massive disasters, slowly but surely. And then far off in the distance, you had Thay, and you had Unther and Mulhurin. So you had the ancient kingdom of the east, and the ancient kingdom of the west, and the ancient kingdom of the south, and that sort of stuff. Like in the south, it was ancient dark elf ruins and things like that. And yeah, and in the west, of course, it was the frontier of the forgotten coast of, the Sword Coast and pirates and dirty dirty frontier fishing ports and stuff like that. So you had everything that you needed to organically develop a video game line, one expansion after the other, and eventually make it like a free to play, multiplayer, massively online sort of thing that developed from the storylines. But you could play solo and play the Baldur's Gate 3 and then additional modules, and then you could jump into with your same character to a online game where everybody was playing on the same servers. That would be how I would go.
One thing we learned through our history of D&D series is Wizards of the Coast are not good at building relationships.
I see it as a wasted effort. Like when they build something and then they let it slide, it's like then you have to build it up from scratch again. This way, you could have an arena type game developing their VTT and feed all of those models and all of that tactical gameplay and all of those game development stuffs into the massively multiplayer game, and then also to update all of the modules that they're developing. And then that way you don't have any problems with the older modules not syncing up perfectly with the new rules and stuff in the massively multiplayer game, because they're kind of like separate but contributing to it. So it would be like the modules would be like novels, and the updated game would be like your game books, your main game books that you put out. So it would be following the same vibe. It would feel still like Dungeons and Dragons. We are developing this world slowly but surely. We contribute to it. Like if you've got a whole big bunch of adventurers all playing the same storylines and stuff in that game world that you've set up, then like a massive in-game event could happen that could write a module that becomes the battle of something or other. And it was like, oh yeah, my character online game character was there in that event that the module is based on. So nothing would be wasted is what I'm saying. All of that would feed back into the same thing. So the module will inform the arena game would inform the VTT play, the VTT play would inform module building would feed back into the world building.
You're basically getting your fan base to do the work for you.
Yeah
And you're just building the sandpit for them to play in.
Yeah so if I was, God forbid, hired by Wizards of the Coast, that is the capacity that I would work at. It's just like, no, you guys need to work smarter, not harder. Right. And you need to leave your creatives alone to do their business, do their job.
Right, let's get back on track.
Right.
Okay. As someone deeply immersed in D&D lore, what's one monster or piece of lore do you think has been poorly done in 5th edition?
Phoenix! The fucking Phoenix. They never fixed the Phoenix. God damn. That was the first turning point on my channel where I went, okay, am I going to just suck dick of Wizards of the Coast here, or am I going to lay it down? And
okay, can you explain it in 2 parts? Can you explain how the Phoenix should be done and then what they did?
Yes.
What's wrong?
Okay. So the Phoenix is a creature from real world mythology. It's from the Arab Eastern world and the Muslim tradition of myth and storytelling. We all know that the Phoenix is a bird that rises from the ashes after it's been immolated and dies, and then it rises from the ashes and regenerates itself. It's famous for its ability to come back from death. And so the Phoenix in like the Harry Potter franchise, hell, and even in Dungeons and Dragons' own cartoon series and stuff like that, the Phoenix is a well-known entity. It's a bird, an organic bird, a mythical creature that's also elemental, in that it's like got a spirit of fire, so it can transform into fire, or it's immune to fire, or it's always got fiery plumage. It's a very beautiful looking bird. Medium sized, like a turkey sort of sized, and in the Harry Potter universe, we know that it's tears translates to the ability to kill any poison, like the basilisk poison, and heal any wound. So it's the ultimate healing potion is the tears of a
So you could
phoenix.
harvest the phoenix.
Yes, yeah. So the feathers, potent, magical, used in all sorts of healing potions and stuff, and of course the tears being a restorative on their own, and just the goodwill and nature of a phoenix being around or bestowing its blessings on you and stuff. And of course, it could be a familiar. Yeah, yeah. So what Dungeons and Dragons did was they went, oh, Dungeons and Dragons needs a large flame elemental creature, so we're just going to take this stat block for a large elemental flame creature. We're going to make it bird shaped. And how are we going to tie it into Phoenix? Oh, we're going to make it turn into a rock if it gets killed, and then regenerate from that basalt rock type thing. And that's their nod towards the entire folklore of the Phoenix. And it was just so lazy and so unnecessary and so boring. Like how could you make this a bit more bland, please? You know, it was really, really badly done. And it was just insulting more than anything. I thought, yeah.
Well,
And I've never used it as a result.
no, I've never used it, but it's never come up in any of my campaigns, so it's not one I've paid attention to be honest. Hopefully, maybe it's fixed in the 2024.
Or just avoid it altogether. So they don't need to redo every single monster in the manual, because most of them are sort of backwards compatible anyway. So I would like to see more stuff on layers and variations and stuff, like what monsters work together, like hags and minions, or have things like additional stuff that they missed out from, like hag spawn, for instance. They didn't really cover hag spawn particularly well. And yeah, like since we've lost half orcs and half elves and things like that, maybe they'll show up in a monster manual.
Yeah. No, I'd like more variety, especially after I went back and got into 4th edition. I really enjoyed the 4th edition monster manual, and I'd like to see some of those things, those ideas now brought into 5th edition. The variety, like you said, the variety of just there's not every goblin has a shield, a short sword, and a short bow.
Right. Yeah.
You know, and one agenda.
Yeah. Also, they've got things like bandits and stuff like that, but they have no mentions of bandit camps and how the bandits live, or how black markets are set up, or how, just like the trade and commerce of Dungeons and Dragons, there's no downtime activities and things like that. Yeah, that would be interesting. So, like, things like spell use for dragons is a new thing for the new edition. So I would like to see more monsters with that in there, and stuff like psionics and things. And yeah, see them more integrated with the backgrounds of the player characters. Like if your character's got a mystical aspect to their training, you've got a whole opportunity to give them tailor-made monsters and encounters that are built for when they're exploring their character's origins, or going to develop further their character and going back to the source of where their powers came from. So that sort of forward-thinking, lateral thinking for how the game really works, that's how I'd like to see the monster manual put together. Not just a grab bag of our favorites from different editions. That would be lazy, and that's what I'm expecting.
Greatest hits, yeah.
Yeah.
I know they introduced that, what was that new Lost Mine of Phandelver book? How they expanded that out and they tacked on another adventure. I know they introduced a psionic goblins in that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've not read that book, sorry. So
yeah, it always feels a little bit incomplete. Like you've got a grab bag of monsters which go with this adventure, but like I would like to see a book when they're talking about goblins. It's like Norca goblins and Arctic goblins and all these different ones from the different editions, and pull them all together and make them really as complex as they have been developed over the last 50 years.
Yep. All right. So the Phoenix is shit.
Phoenix. Oh, Phoenix is fucking terrible.
All right. Next question. Your video on the Demogorgon is your most popular monster video with 484,000 views.
Jeez.
Why do you think this particular monster resonates so much with your audience? It's not your most popular video.
No.
It is your most popular monster video.
Yeah. I think for that it was Stranger Things more than anything. I got a lot of hits like traffic went up by like threefold, 300% on my channel. Whilst that craze was, actually no, that was the Baldur's Gate. Baldur's
I
Gate
think,
actually gave me more hits than Stranger Things, but Stranger Things got me more hits over time on those
yeah.
videos. Hmm.
Well, I've got your list here, so I think that lines up because it was about 6 years ago you released the Demigorgon. So in terms of your monster videos, Demigorgon is in front. In second place is Dragon Gods at 414. Third place is Vecna at 351. So that's probably another Stranger Things reference. And in fourth place is the Mind Flayer, which would probably be to do with Baldur's Gates.
Yep.
Your most popular video at 593,000 views is Faiths and Clerics on the Forgotten Realms, which, due to there not being any mention of gods in the new player's handbook, that might even grow further for you.
Yeah, it would be in my best interest to probably make all the monster gods and stuff like that. Now, the interesting thing is that that's not gods of the Forgotten Realms. That's the faiths and the clerics. So that's really player focused. And I found that players, I get a wider amount of audience that really, really likes my player character class background videos. Now, that's not talking about the mechanics of the class or how to make an optimum build or anything like that. It's not mechanics focused. Like when I'm talking about where bards come from, it's talking about the history of them in the Forgotten Realms, where they come from as a society. Like where did that school of training come from? Who are the characters involved? What's the history of it? And bards is really interesting because they have a specific individual who developed the first bardic skill, kind of like the first samurai, was this one particular guy who used a wakizashi, katana wakizashi combination together, and everybody emulated him. And is it like that with most of the character classes? No, but with the faiths and the clerics, every single choice that you make in making a cleric sends you down a unique path. So no two clerics are ever really the same. And it's like that with schools of magic and stuff as well. So when I make the video on the wizards, it was like a 3-part video talking about the magic schools and how they operate and stuff. Because each one is a different role in society. Like the abjuration specialists, for instance, are protectors of people against supernatural threats. So they're the magical investigators, the Sherlock Holmes sort of guy who maybe doesn't know how to cast fireball, but he can open a magical lock or lock and securely contain a supernatural threat. So Ghostbusters.
Why the Dragon Gods? Why is that one so popular?
Because Dungeons and Dragons. There's really no information on dragon gods, and because they're an intelligence race of creatures that are increasingly working together, particularly in the narrative of my videos, you can see in the Forgotten Realms, the dragons are at a heyday of their society. Like their society has suddenly been released from bondage in the form of this dragon curse. In the Forgotten Realms, every time this big comet passes over, all the dragons go crazy. Well, 300 years ago, that spell finally ended. Thanks to
hang on, is that so? That's how the beginning of that new starter adventure, Dragon of Stormwreck Isle, is all about a comet. So is that connected to that lore?
Yeah,
Have you read?
yeah. The cult of the dragon. They're trying to raise dragons from the dead, thanks to the visions of Samaster, who was a very powerful archmage, one of the ones who invented a lot of the meta magics that sorcerers and stuff use. So Samaster figured out that undead dragons would eventually rule the world because they were the most powerful end form of any form of life. And so he went about making dragon liches and allying himself with them and finding out ways of controlling them because he figured I'll be in charge of the biggest, baddest force, that takes out the rest of the universe. Anyway, and he also went crazy and was like a lich and a chosen of Mystra, and he's got a big long story. And he's very involved with like Elminster and various other characters of the Forgotten Realms.
Yeah.
And of course, all the big, powerful dragons who are very much aware of not wanting to become minions of the cult of the dragon. But some of them find it a path to power. Anyway, dragons have been subjected to this mythal that was put on them by elves a very long time ago when elves were first colonizing Faerun, coming over from not all elves, it was just the new arrival of the sort of fairy elves coming over who had screwed up their homeland and were refugees in the Forgotten Realms and saw that dragons were in charge and didn't like it. and so they destroyed Dragon Society, which was closely allied with Dark Elf Society, and so by affecting the dragons, they also destroyed Dark Elf Society unprovoked, and that caused a lot of retaliation, and that caused the original antipathy between light and dark elves, or the fairy elves and the native elves. Yeah, so the dragons had, at the same time, they were distracted by a war with the gods of the giants, the titans and stuff, and they had a genocidal war with the giants of Faerun at the same time that they were having a religious war among themselves. And that's one of the reasons why the Dragon Gods video is so popular, is because dragons used to have a much more theocratic society. But because of that religious war almost causing them to go extinct, they, as a whole, dragons are very, what do you call it? They're aware of the gods, but they don't pay them any, they don't worship them.
Yeah.
Not agnostic or atheistic, but non-theistic. Yeah. So they acknowledge that the dragon gods exist, but they see them as higher forms of dragon life. They don't see them as spirits that are in charge of their day-to-day life, sort of thing. They don't worship them per se. And that means that the dragon gods have a much reduced power portfolio than they used to. So dragon gods are more like spirits and entities these days, who are very dormant. But they can make, the more the dragons are released from the dragon mythal, and the more they start cohabitating together, they start sharing ideas and sharing beliefs, and the dragon gods are now waking up again as well.
Yeah.
So the astral plane is becoming more active with their activity.
Cool. All right. I'll definitely go check those out. Yeah, so they're easy to find. So just jump on AJ's YouTube channel. They're
I condensed all that information for you, so you don't have to go slogging your way through all the PDFs of stolen, old Wizard of the Coast books from 30 years ago that are quite often hard to find.
Okay, so as someone who has covered the entire 5th edition monster manual from A to Z,
yep,
what's your favorite monster, and what's your least favorite?
I would have to say that vampires are one of my favorite monsters, just because of their versatility and how well known they are. So they're all about subverting the expectations of characters and sneaking up on them. But close second to that is actually not a D&D monster at all. It's the Kroot from Warhammer 40k. And I'll probably do a video on the Kroot pretty soon, all about how horizontal gene transfer, and when you look at what it would be if you turn it into a species with that ability, like if you ask ChatGPT to get that one specific biological trait and turn it into an avian humanoid sapient species, it writes the Kroot for you. And then you say, okay, look at Warhammer 40k and compare the two, and it will go, oh, the Kroot are exactly what I was just talking about. I was like, yep, you just wrote the Kroot.
So,
anyway.
Yeah, well, we're going to save that for our much anticipated Warhammer 40k.
Right, yeah. Every time I mention that podcast, it sort of slides off, Nacho, like a water off a duck's back, and we sidle back into something else.
Makes my butt tighten.
Yeah.
But I think we'll approach it that I'll come in as the noob and you can just school me. And,
so vampires as an overall monster is my favorite, but for the Dungeons and Dragons monster, it's Mind Flayers.
Yeah.
Hands down, because Mind Flayers are unique to D&D, and they span almost the entire history of the game, and they've been developed into the biggest bad. They are destined to take over the multiverse briefly.
And we're big Lovecraftian Cthulhu fans as well. We like the creepiness, and that does have that.
Yep,
that Cthulhu vibe.
They've got enough of the Daleks from Doctor Who. They've got enough of the Cthulhu from H.P. Lovecraft. They've got enough of the Nightmare, Clive Barker-esque hellscape. So
my big bad in my current campaign has become Mind Flayer, even though it wasn't. The players are dealing with Xanathar and they are dealing with Halaster Blackcoat. As written in the book, Xanathar has a Mind Flayer working for him. I've set him up like Blofeld in Goldfinger, where he's always got a brain instead of a cat, and he's always like patting when he's talking to him. He's always like running his fingers across his brain. He's just walking around with this favorite like intellect devour that he like
Yep.
strokes like a cat, and he even like curls his whiskers like when he's telling his like evil plans. So at the moment, how we finished up my campaign yesterday. So the Xanathar wants to take over Waterdeep. Um, then Mindflayer feels that's too ambitious and he doesn't want to do that. So he's sent the players on a quest to break into a prison and to get the name of a pit fiend off this prisoner so that he could then take command of a pit fiend and then use the pit fiend to take over and oust Xanathar.
Wow. Risky.
Um, yeah,
Risky.
yeah. So my players are basically they've gone from saving Waterdeep to then they're now working for a mind flayer too,
Oh, they're
so he
very
can.
quickly going to be working for a pit fiend, I can tell you.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
But yeah, no, they're very cool, and I'm glad that they've got popular now, especially with Baldur's Gate. You know, as to quote Zoolander, so hot right now.
I think
But
if I had those
mind flayers,
characters, the summon pit fiend would be like, congratulations on having the balls to summon me, and then he would pull back his cloak, which is his wing, and reveal a collection of dried scrotums with little rattly balls inside them.
yeah.
It's like, hey, here are the 50 who last tried this. Yeah.
I mean, vampires make sense. Strahd is huge.
Yeah.
I know in the new monster manual they're introducing low level vampires.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of the player character vampire. I like the fact that Dungeons and Dragons vampires are old school monsters. They are undead. So they're a corpse, right? They're a corpse which is inhabited by an undead spirit. Your soul of your character that was previously in that body has departed and gone to the afterlife and is unaware of everything, all the activity when they are a vampire. You know, so if you resurrect a vampire, for instance, it comes back and they have no recollection of what they did, thankfully. But the vampire is a spirit that has got total access to the memories of that body, that corpse that it's in, and it uses the memories of those loved ones of the person, its victim, first because they're the easiest to feed on because of love and connection and the fact that it can tempt them and cajole them the easiest. So it's a
Yeah.
truly evil creature. That's the first thing that it kills is the victim's loved ones. And the thing about the Dungeons and Dragons vampire is it's a facade. You've got to remember that it's always a facade. It's not actually those memories. It's not that personality. It doesn't actually feel the angst and stuff that it puts on as a display. It's not actually conflicted at all. It's just a spider in its web, and it's rattling those little web lines. Like, it makes you feel sorry for it. It makes you feel passion. It makes you feel love for it. It's manipulating you just so it can get close enough. And once that veil is pulled away from its raw hunger, you just see that it's a predator that wants your blood, and that's it.
It's a narcissist.
But that is that's just everything just conceals the fact that it's a corpse that wants to drain you of all of your blood.
Probably why Strahd is such a popular villain. On top of that, you know, the way they use Strahd in Curse of Strahd as well. He's not just the bad guy that's in that one room that you have to just get to that one room. He's the roaming. He's the roaming villain, you know. So
and you can really ham it up with him too, because his entire personality is a distraction from the monster that he is. So the more at ease you can make the characters, like with him getting close enough to bite into their neck and then not, there should always be that very imminent threat that at any time Strahd could kill you. He's just toying with you.
I wish I could do a better Matt Berry voice, because Matt Berry voice would be my Strahd.
I'd probably be more like Noel Fielding.
Your least favorite?
Monster?
Yeah, your least favorite monster from 5th edition Monster Manual. You can't say Phoenix again.
Well, really. I think just from 5th edition in general, the other one would be the walking dragon turtle. They didn't do dragon turtles very well at all.
Right. It's kind of tacked on to the dragon at the end, isn't it?
Yeah, dragon turtles are supposed to be really large. You're supposed to be walking around on them like an island. They shouldn't be any smaller than gargantuan or colossal. Also, they haven't really done the sizes of monsters justice either. They stopped at gargantuan and never acknowledged that there's actually further monster sizes. So that kind of.
I think they might have expanded on that in that new. Is it Bigby's something of giants? book.
Did they?
Yeah, that came with a bestiary that had a lot, not just giants, like giant animals and monsters. Yeah, I think they did expand on that, but I don't know if they got bigger. Sorry, I know they just introduced more giant-sized monsters.
Yeah, like at what point does the monster become a location that you're walking around on and fighting?
I mean, that's a cool start to a campaign. You're on an island, and the island's just a sleeping dragon turtle.
Yeah.
Um,
and who doesn't like the Discworld and A2 and
yeah, it's Discworld and yeah. All right. What's your favorite third-party monster?
Probably the best background of where it came from, the origin, and also its usefulness is the Ooblex, which is a new ooze creature, which was kind of like a Make-A-Wish, give a little organization thingy for a sick kid who came up with this monster, and it turned out it was really good.
What's it called, sorry?
The Ooblex.
Obelix.
Yeah,
Ooblex.
It's a ooze which can emulate and create basically doppelgangers which are connected back to the central mass of the creature, so it can operate in multiple copies of people at the same time. In fact, you can have Ooblex, which is
Clayface and Batman.
Yeah, if he had like an astral cord, which was actually a little intestinal bit of ooze connected from his foot back to the kitchen, and the kitchen was a mass with many tentacles. One was the maid, one was the tavern owner, one was the guy outside, tending to the horses and stuff, and one, of course, was downstairs in the basement eating people.
And a kid came up with this?
Yes.
How old?
I don't know. But yeah, really well done.
Interesting. As DMs, we like to homebrew. What's your favorite homebrewed monster you've made?
Probably the one which stands out most over time. One of my favorites is the Lurfin, which is a moss which emulates things that gets fed into it. So it makes moss duplicates of people or creatures. But my favorite is the pink ooze, the delicious pink ooze.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think we've talked about this on the podcast. Actually, I think
No.
we've talked about this in private.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it didn't get into the Pathfinder's second monster manual that they put out submissions for, because I don't think they took it seriously. Because it looks a bit like a sex toy or something. I don't know.
Sounds like a sex toy.
It sounds a bit like a sex toy. Yeah. So the delicious pink ooze is a very simple concept. It is a non-lethal creature. So it's the pink ooze is no danger to you really in and of itself. It digests things very slowly. It's more used to digesting carrion and the waste of other creatures. But what it does is it's developed this very simple, but it seems intelligent, but it's just a very simple reaction of, if you bother it, it squirts you with an enzyme, like a skunk spray, except it's the exact opposite of skunk spray. It makes you smell absolutely fucking delicious, like truly delicious.
Like halfling sewer belay delicious.
Yeah, it's like you're sprayed with Brad Pitt sweat mixed with MSG. You are absolutely delicious.
I've actually heard that Brad Pitt actually has bad BO.
Does he?
One of his yeah. So anyway, sorry.
I don't know. I'll take your word for it. I'm never going to get close. First of all, I'm not going to sniff him if I get close enough.
If you do know what Brad Pitt smells like, let us know.
Yeah. Plus, I smell fantastic anyway. I am a natural born hobbit, so if you scratch me, I smell like cookies. It's true.
I smell like dog because I have 3 dogs.
Occasionally, I'll smell like cat, which is to say, I smell like nothing at all. Yeah, I smell like my floor. So the pink ooze also has the side effect of, if you alchemically cure this material that it squirts on you, it turns into a pink substance like Himalayan pink salt. Looks exactly like that. Okay, then you add that as a condiment or a spice or a flavor enhancer to any particular food you want, and it can be as simple as it turns out in the campaign that I ran, some onion dip.
Like some reduced cream and pink ooze.
Yeah.
Can I just explain what onion dip? Because I don't know if everyone knows what. So in New Zealand, we get reduced cream.
Famously in New Zealand, yeah, we get an
reduced cream and a
French onion soup. Picture a paper foiled package of dried French onion soup that you would add to boiled water to make a brown but quite tasty soup, like a broth. Now, just take that powder as is and mix it with some reduced cream. That's dehydrated milk, essentially, unsweetened. And then mix those two together and add a little bit of lemon juice to give it a little bit of a curdle.
Oh, you're fancy.
Yeah. No, the lemon juice is absolutely vital.
I've actually got some next to me.
Right.
I've got a packet of onion soup and a can of reduced
it takes, yeah, it's not like it's good to go straight away. The consistency and everything is good to go straight away. You mix it up with a fork, it's good to go. You can dip your plain salted chips in those straight away. So there's potato chips or crisps or whatever.
Anyway,
and that's French onion. That's our onion dip. But now, so yeah, this one particular bar, which happened to be the bar that all of the apprentice wizards hung out at after classes and had a rave party downstairs in the basement, thanks to a magical portal that they were using the spare energy from. And they all got horribly addicted to this onion dip. And it got to the point where the town was consuming so much onion dip, they ripped out other crops in favor of planting more onions. And yeah, that was one of the threefold downfalls that town that just happened to organically happen while
so
the
that
players...
was my question was, I wrote down a note. Is Pinku's addictive? So
yeah, highly.
It's like you could have like Pinku's farmers or like almost like a mafia.
Yeah, in this case, it was the lizard folk who lived in the swamp next door to the town who had an agreement that the townsfolk, the humans, would not go into the swamp was Harktis, which means forbidden in lizard folk language. Harktis. I had all of the player characters learn this word by the end of the campaign. They used it in their day-to-day lives outside of D&D. Harktis was like our code word for somebody, don't go near that person, they're Harktis, they're forbidden. It's great. Dungeons and Dragons, 1,000,001 users. Anyway, so the lizard folk originally were selling them just the powder extract. So they didn't give them any of the actual oozes to manufacture it themselves, which is their way of controlling the supply. It was a goblin barmaid named Crandy who got hold of the method of making and then all hell broke loose.
And if I had done it, it would have been like a Jay and Silent Bob.
Yeah. Yeah. Crandy ended up being such a popular character. How's it going, toots? I like your asses at my face level. She was a character that was so popular that she ended up appearing in 3 more campaigns.
I've got one of those. I've got a retired city guard who's old and forgetful that just my characters seem to gravitate towards.
Yeah.
They've always getting him fired from a job, and then they'll go to the next place, and he's just been hired at this place.
Not you again. Yeah. I love it. Yeah. I also have a non-verbal character called a little golem construct character called Tink. That's basically a bowling ball with 4 legs that fold out from compartments, and he's always got a compartment that opens like R2-D2. He's got the tool for the job. Wherever you're in the shit, Tink will show up. He's also basically a bowling ball, so all he needs to do is propel himself fast enough, retract his legs, and then he becomes a battering ram. Yeah. So he's a very simple character. Tink does. Yeah, he communicates by tapping.
I think we answered that question. Where can people find the Pinkus if they wanted to use it?
Various blogs over the years. But if you ask me, I think I've got a video on it. I do have. I think I have a video on the Pinkus on my channel. I should redo it, remaster it.
All right. Cool. What's one D&D monster do you think is underappreciated or underused in the game?
Probably the imp.
Yeah, they're quite cool little, like they're the classic shoulder devil.
Yeah.
I ran a casino heist and I had an imp there. Like basically he was telling encouraging the players to gamble at the casino. Like the classic devil on the shoulder.
Yeah. Because imps are invisible. They're very, very hard to fight. And they have a paralyzing poison stinger. And they can use that stinger, like they could extract that poison and use it in all sorts. Like they don't have to just sting you; they can inject it into food and all sorts of stuff. They're very smart. They are very well connected. They know the activity of a lot of other lords of hell and stuff because that's their business, is selling information back in the 9 hells. So they've got to be very crafty. Also, they've been alive for thousands of years. So yeah, imps are like they're so versatile. The different ways that you can use them. They're both a toady little creature that's just like a minion, but they're also potentially the mastermind of your campaign.
Yeah, who's that little guy in Harry Potter? The dwarf that everyone feels sorry for?
Dobby.
Yeah, I always think I kind of use him as a as a blueprint for an imp, like an evil satanic version.
I never
of
thought
that.
about that. Yeah, like some legacy curse that imp's whole line of family has been cursed with is like they're left naked. It's like you're an
And the
imp. You're not naked. You just imps don't wear clothes. It's like what?
and the invisible thing is cool as well because you can have them as just little voices.
Well,
and
not only that, but they also transform. So the imps have got like 5 different types of imp that have been completely left out in 5th edition. But there's like the toxin imp and there's the blood imp. So there's like a medical imp that they use in the 9 hells for repairing people on the battlefield, sort of thing. There's also imps that specialize in sabotage and diplomacy.
gremlins, devil
Yeah,
gremlins.
kind of. Yeah. So imps are much more versatile in the previous editions of the game. They came up with lots of variety of imps. So we've lost a lot of the broad scope of imp lore has been lost in 5th edition. So yeah, I don't think they're being done particularly well, and they could do with an expansion. It easily as expanded as like tieflings, like the different types of tieflings for the different types of lords. Same thing with imps. Imps should be as different.
Well, that kind of you've just naturally gone into a question here where what monster do you think should be a playable race or / species? I guess we're calling it species now. Is that? Would you think that?
No, I think trolls should be a playable race.
Okay.
That's purely from experience playing Savage Species in 2nd edition and playing a play character troll, and he was really cool. I liked his sort of base. Like the closest would be playing a full-blooded orc, for instance. So I didn't do PvP shit. You know, like the excuse of that's what my character would do. It was just like if the dungeon master put something provocative that would push that troll's buttons, I would respond like automatically. And then, but it was so well signposted that he would back off the situation if he didn't want my troll raging and eating people.
Yeah, I was going to say, don't you think trolls are a bit OP, like with the regeneration? And
yeah, they are. But look
like
at the game as it is right now; it is very OP. So yeah, trolls. I think the trolls are underdone. But an imp player character class would be really well done too. A little bit overpowered as well. Flight, invisibility at first level. That's pretty tricky. Also, imps can transform into spiders, rats, crows. They used to be able to transform into a goat, but that was a bit too big, I think.
all right. Goblins and kobolds are commonly used in low-level monster encounters. What other low-level monsters do you think a DM should consider to add variety and challenge to their campaigns?
There's a ton.
I have an answer to this one as well.
There's a ton of small creature races like the Germalane, and the all the fairy races, atomies and sprites, pucks and pixies. Myconids, I would go with myconids, and also the Chewinga, which is came out, and that was actually Chewinga. We're from the Far North Adventure in 10 Towns.
Oh yes, Rime of the Frost Maiden.
Yeah, but the Chewingas exist like they're nature spirits, so they exist in all environments. And they kind of they're very gay, like they are, because they came from Chris Perkins, and that's just part of them. But yeah, Myconids.
It's fun to say.
Chewinga, yeah, Chewingas.
Chewinga.
Yeah. So also you could make little Chewinga cannibals, like with the bone masks and stuff. You could make them like that. But I remember Diablo 2 was really good where they had that whole section.
Don't upset the Chewingas by getting their pronouns wrong.
Right, yeah. Otherwise they'll stand on top of each other and blow dart you. Yeah, so I would go Myconids. Myconids need a surface version of them that lives in forests and stuff, not just underground creatures, but
People know what Myconids are?
Myconids are fungus people. So imagine a mushroom gets up and talks to you. That's Myconids for you. But they're very psychic and very kumbaya.
I am terrified of mushrooms. It's
Really?
actually one of my Last of Us. Have you seen Last of Us
Yeah.
or the game? And then I was watching the
Oh, it'd horrify you to know that I've actually taken that mushroom as a supplement.
well, I'm watching Clarkson's farm, which is where Jeremy Clarkson owns this farm, and he started growing mushrooms, and he got this bunker, and he put the shit down there, and then closed the door and went back, and just fucking how fast those things were growing,
Yeah.
and like the size of them, it's like, yeah. And then after watching Last of Us, yeah, I don't know, there's mushrooms creep me out.
Yeah, they are. They're one of the original three forms of life on this planet. They're as alien
Yeah.
from us as plants are, really.
Fun guy, I don't
Yeah.
think so, buddy. I have an answer to this that I think is a low level creature that I feel gets underused and I think should be up. In my opinion, should be on par with the likes of goblins and kobolds. Is mephits.
Mm,
I
yep.
think mephits are really cool low level monsters because they have this cool little thing they do when they die. That when your first level party encounters it, they'll remember they're quite easy to kill, um, but they explode.
They explode. Yeah. Particularly steam methods. Steam methods are like my go-to for steam methods are always annoyed, like they're the worst personality of like a little creature.
Mm.
So yeah, they're vexatious. Like
And they're versatile because there's so many different types that no matter
yeah,
what type of campaign you run, you can slot that particular type of method
yeah. My
to suit that.
pseudo, like it's derived from the original lore, but it's also homebrew as well. Is that methods were the original words exchanged by primordials, like so big that their
Well,
their
ex-
concepts came to life.
maybe explain what methods are, because
Methods are basically elemental imps. Yeah. And they represent all of the elements, including the pseudo and para elementals. So they have steam methods and mud methods and rot methods, fart methods, and all sorts of methods.
yeah.
Yeah. And they
So
lend themselves really well to just being little minions and mooks and stuff like that, that are around on the elemental planes all the time.
they're perfect for low level encounters. They're
Yeah.
a good that you can use them to they're a good opening fight and they're memorable and they don't
Yep.
get used. They don't get used enough.
And swarms of them can also take out high level player characters. So yeah, they're always useful at every level of the game.
All right. Cursus Strahd is considered by many to be the best published 5th edition adventure, largely due to its iconic villain. What other monsters or creatures do you think would make great campaign antagonists?
Well, we've seen dragons a lot. So not a dragon. We've also seen Xanathar show up as well. So a beholder is also
Beholder.
really good.
He was done optionally, and he wasn't really showing up. I don't think he was thrown into Waterdeep Dragon Heist as an optional villain, and the DM was encouraged not to use him to. The players are going to die because it's only a 5th level adventure.
Yeah.
So he's there, but they don't even give him a stat block. They just tell you to use the standard Beholder stat block.
Yeah.
So he's not really done very well in 5th edition, to be honest.
We've seen demons, of course. We've seen giants. We've seen dragons, as I said, and we've seen what else? Aboleths as well, I think. We've also seen a little bit of mind flayers, but not really much of them specifically as the bad guys. Of course, there's Baldur's Gate 3 which
What about an Elder Brain as the antagonist?
yeah. Tricky because beholders are mind flayers are both pawns and masterminds at the same time. So the mind flayers are actually beholden to the elder brains. The elder brain is supposed to be the big bad guy, but it's also just like a computer network. It's kind of like their Skynet. They're under its control. No, what I would like to see is one of the more exotic controlling races from the early history of Dungeons and Dragons, like cloakers, for instance. Cloakers are an intelligent manta ray species that exists outside of the water. So they tie in with the ancient age Toril, for instance, when the abyss flooded the surface world and froze it, and dominated everything underneath the ice.
Cool.
Or
Very cool.
And also Nyogi are a really good bad guys as well because they're so like viciously horrible. Nyogi are they're kind of HP Lovecrafty in their vibe as well, in that they're hedonistic and mercantile. They're very greedy, and they can be dealt with as traders and merchants and information brokers. But also they're violent predators and love nothing more than eating humanoids. And their way of reproducing is parasitical on the members of their own society. So they're really, really horrible, and they're slavers as well. But if you absolutely have to get to another dimension, you can always rely on the Nyogi to have something for sale.
Yeah. What about Drow?
A little bit overdone, and also not enough attention is paid on the fact that there's other Drow cultures and other Drow religions, not just Lolth and not just Menzo Barrington.
So, I mean, a Drow matron mother's, what's that, CR 20 or 25 or something ridiculous?
Yeah. And also,
pretty...
by the time you get to the matron mother, you're in the depths of Drow society. So they're not just, like, it's never just the CR of the monster, it's also all of the minions.
As an antagonist, I guess I never read Out of the Abyss. Did that use Drow as antagonists?
Oh, they're around.
Mm.
Yeah. Big sprawling adventure, that one.
I mean, Strahd is a hard one to... He's so iconic because, like we said, vampires are so cool. And
yeah, and Asiarak, the Lich from Tomb of Annihilation.
Vecna, obviously.
Vecna, yep.
He was poorly done.
Another Lich god. Well, right, yeah. I mean, if he's done properly, your characters are dead. Or at least under his control.
All right. Do you have a favorite piece of monster art from D&D history?
Anything from D&D Basic is good by me. So a lot of
Elmore.
Yeah, a lot of Elmore. Todd Lockwood has done some of the best dragon art. And although Simon Bisley hasn't done any artwork for Dungeons & Dragons monster manuals and stuff, I wish he had.
When I wrote this question down, I flipped through Art and Arcana. So if you do like Dungeons & Dragons art, there's this fantastic visual dictionary called Art and Arcana, which is basically just a visual history of the game.
Yeah. So for 5th edition, I would say shout out to Conceptopolis, who did a lot of the artwork and stuff for a lot of the monsters that were iconic for 5th edition.
I think that red dragon on the cover of the red box is probably, there's a reason it's so iconic that for me that for 40, what are we now, 40 odd years.
Yeah.
That came out 84, didn't it? So 40 years.
And it's not even a regular dragon, it's got like one horn. Yeah, so strange.
That image or that piece of art has never gotten old to me.
And also the wizard and the dragon bit on the manual with a big swirly. Yeah, those old covers were so good.
Yeah, was that Jeff Easley?
Yeah.
We should know. What is the most memorable monster encounter in a game that you've ever run or played in?
One of my proudest moments was getting Matt Click and surprising him with a Roper encounter, because I put it in a non-traditional place. They were in a petrified stand of trees in a desert when they got attacked by the Roper, and he had no freaking idea what the weird tendrils on the ground were. He thought they were rope of some goblin thingy trying to net them, and then it wasn't until the eye of the thing opened and its mouth opened when he was getting dragged towards the stump that he realized the shit that he was truly in. He's just like, he was delighted that he had no idea that he was facing a Roper.
Oh, you had it with the tendrils out?
Yep.
Nice. Yeah, I had it. I had one in a hag's lair. While they were fighting the hag, and they backed up, and it backed up. Oh yeah, I drew some staglamites on the ground, and one player used one for cover from the hag, and then I had the eye. While he was hiding behind the cover, I just had an eye open up in front of him.
Yep. Like the rock opens its eye and looks at you. What?
Yeah.
What? Yeah.
They are a cool monster.
The rope tightens of its own accord. It's a magical rope.
They're a fun monster.
You cut it and it bleeds. Wait a minute.
Yeah,
they are a fun monster, because you don't reveal it all at once. It's always leave it up to the players to figure it out. Don't over
Yeah.
describe it, and then it's just like it will take them a surprisingly large amount of time to realize that they're fighting a roper. Like
They're
such an iconic creature.
they're a good monster to use once your players get a little bit smarter and they start using things like cover and half cover.
Yeah,
And if you're in a situation where you can throw a creature like that just can blend in,
yeah,
like a mimic, I guess, as well.
yeah.
Um, it's when you do, you can't overuse them, but when you do pull them out, they will be memorable at your table.
Mm.
Um,
When one of the long-standing jokes on my channel has been Piercer and Roper, which is a mythical cartoon series, like a comic strip, set in a more noir underdark, with Menzo Branson being a more cosmopolitan city, not just Drow, but also all the other monster races. And Roper is a detective, and Piercer is his sort of apprentice partner. Never talks, but is always there. Whenever they're apprehending a suspect, and it's like it's chase time, and it's like a chase with a roper is ridiculous because it's a big stalactite, right?
yeah.
Um,
I like to say there's a mimic that takes the piss out of Roper because
uh,
he can only change into one thing.
No, the mimic in this case takes the form of a 1971 Trans Am, or Charger, Dodge Charger, or something like that. Some big muscle car, which is so incongruous with because it could drive up walls and shit like that because it's got adhesive wheels. It's fucking clear, and it's always going when it appears. Anyway, and of course, when the bad guy's about to get away, that's when Piercer arrives from actually just drops out of the sky from nowhere and and skewers the guy, and it's just like another one's apprehended, and then they're drawing the chalk circle around the victim. But it's just like, how funny would that be? An underground a detective in an underdark city with all these monsters and stuff.
He has like this inner monologue of like a noir,
Yeah,
It was a rainy night. I couldn't
yeah.
afford to pay my
Oh,
bills.
he's always talking. He's got this big mouth, and he's got a fungus mustache because he's basically he's me, right? So, yeah, Roper is me projected into the Underdark.
Yeah. This broad came into my. I'm reading a lot of. I've just got into the Dresden Files. I've left it a little bit late, so I'm actually listening to the Dresden File audio books at the moment.
Right.
And he's a bit of a perv, old Harry Harry Dresden. Um, every woman is very sexualized, but it's read by the guy that James Masters, who I think
Oh.
was Spike in Buffy.
Yep.
Yeah, he does. He does really excellent audiobook narration of it. So, and he does a lot of that.
I think he was born to play Constantine.
He does a lot of that noir sort of in a dialogue of, he's a wizard detective.
Yeah.
And it has to deal with like supernatural cases that the cops can't figure out, like werewolves and demons and whatnot. And
that's why I think he would be perfect as Constantine, because he's got the accent right, he's got the look right, just naturally,
Yep.
and he's from that genre of storytelling anyway.
He's Harry Dresden to me now.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. He's.
And of course,
I think he's done the whole books.
I think Keanu Reeves is doing another Constantine movie.
I don't know. I can never tell these days between AI what's real and what's a fan-made trailer or poster.
Yeah, we are in control of the horizontal, and we're living in the Twilight Zone.
Yeah. Do you like the Sandman?
I do.
Yeah. Have you ever read that particular? There's that particular storyline in the Sandman where Constantine's in it.
No.
Right, and they so Neil Gaiman did a audio drama of the Sandman, and it had who's the I've gone blank. He's the actor that played Elton John, and he was in The Kingsman.
Mm-hmm.
He did Constantine's voice in it, and he was really, really good. Really, really good.
Right.
But he just did the voice. But yeah, no, that's something. I know they made a TV series, didn't they? Wasn't there a Hellblazer TV show?
Yes, he was.
And I think it got cancelled.
Yeah, that was okay, but it could have been better. They needed more ghosts.
All right, we've got one more question left, and it's a bit of a stupid one. If you could have any monster from D&D as a roommate or a pet, which one would you choose and why?
A gibbering mouther for obvious reasons. No. Probably.
You want some pikus with that? With that mouth of it?
I think probably something like a genie, because they can alter reality at will, and give you wishes. So, yeah, just purely selfish reasons. And also they're free willed. Like I don't think of my pet as a pet. For instance, I cohabitate with a cat. I'm his surrogate, like dad / uncle / minder / medical team / caterer. And what does he do for me? I don't know.
They just put my bins up, so I'm going to go with Odiarch.
Odiarch. Oh yeah, we discovered that's actually how you pronounce it. I've been pronouncing it wrong all these years. I've been saying Otiug, but it's actually Odiarch. Otiarch.
I was right for once, and it's recorded.
That's if you trust D&D Beyond and their pronunciations, which I tend to. If not them, then who? Honestly, you got to stop somewhere.
Yeah, I've been calling it Odiarch, and AJ.
I want to hear them all pronounce it. I want them all to hear them say GIF though, not GIF.
Yeah. Oh, sigil. They can't even say sigil, right?
Sigil. Yeah. The city of Sigil.
I've been saying.
You're saying it wrong. Oh, no. You don't know the law.
No, they're saying Project Sigil, aren't they? Instead of Project Sigil.
Well, they can call the project whatever the fuck they want. They can call it Project Blancmange as far as that's concerned. Like, it doesn't matter. But the moment they start calling the city of doors Sigil, not Sigil, then they're wrong. Or Sigil.
Project that shit ain't ready yet. What are you showing us? Yeah.
Like, we don't need to see the alpha. Just show us the whatever the hell you've come up with.
Yeah, well, it's meant to be beta, isn't it?
Oh, God.
There's another one, beta. Anyway. We'll do some letters. Insert letter theme.
Bring the letters.
Bring the letters. Hear the call. Wizards read them one and all. Questions from the listeners. Voices loud and clear. You can have your opinions read out here.
All right.
Okay.
I'm fired up after that musical interlude.
So, this week on the socials, I asked, what's your favorite and least favorite monster from D&D 5e and why? Sean Marshall, favorite will always be the Belay. Nothing glamorous about it. I just love the beast so much. Great design, great beefy boss monster for early level and just fun.
Yeah.
Least favorite is the Modron. They're like the Jar Jar Binks of the monster manual. I know Fred will be upset with that answer. I know Fred loves the Modron.
Yeah, I'm a little bit surprised at the Modron hate there. I can see it. Yeah, they are a bit goofy looking.
Yeah. Oh, they kind of got a minion, like in the monster manual. Like they do look like the minions from Despicable Me.
Yeah. Through no fault of their own, they are weird, right? They are organic and technological combined in a cutesy way.
Yeah.
They need to be more horrific, I think.
Yeah.
More Borg-like.
The Belay, and I am saying that right, I believe. They're great. They're a great monster. I did a really cool setup with a Belay, inspired from the movie Tremors. So I had the players going through a large valley. It was plain, sort of, mountainous things. They were heading to a town. Very sort of Tremors-like environment. And they found this halfling in a tree, dead. And when they investigated it, they found that the halfling had starved to death, like nothing had killed them. So he basically crawled into this tree and then just not come down and just died of starvation.
So he's up there for like a day and a half.
And that's when I had the book. So Belay's notoriously like halflings.
Right.
And that's when I had the Belay.
Because we're delicious.
And that's when the Belay attacked. And then I had them when they got to the village, like everyone was on the roofs, and there was basically a Belay had come into this valley and was just picking people off and they couldn't deal with it. And then one of the little things I chucked in there so the players could deal with it is I had a Wondrous figurine.
Mhm.
I had an elephant, so they could set this Wondrous elephant off as a decoy for the belay
Nice.
to chase.
Mhm.
Yeah. So yeah, they are really fun. They're really fun monsters. So
I've used relays more to chase characters from the wilderness into a dungeon more often than not. So it's raining and they're being chased by a boule is a good reason to seek any shelter. And that's the entrance to a tomb or something like that, usually.
if you want to add a Jaws like encounter to your game, and obviously you're not in the
Mhm.
sea, because they just eat things. They're just burrowing land sharks.
Yeah. There's a very famous Saturday Night Live episode skit where there's an actual like knock at the door, and they go to answer it, and it's just like land shark. It's like, huh? Telegram. Yeah. and then you hear the jaws sound in the background. No. And it's this shark outside their door hunting them by pretending to be like a telegram or something just to get them to open the door. It's like, I don't believe it. You're that land shark that's around, hunting people. Yeah.
Motrons I like Motrons. They're fun. They're good ways to because I set up my Undermountain to be like a game show that Hallister is broadcasting across the multiverse. I recently used Modrons as basically the film crew when the players discovered the TV studio that was all just operated by Modrons. Because that's you want a minion that's not going to be confrontational, that the players aren't going to want to kill, but also explains the ecology of your story.
Yeah. When the players first encounter a Modron, they're never expecting how simple the Modrons are in their mindset. Like, it's really hard to communicate with the low level Modron because they can only literally do one thing at a time. So if they're carrying a pot of like dirt and then they stop and you're in front of them, they haven't got enough wherewithal to step around you, so they just stop until you get out of their way. But if you take away the dirt, all of a sudden their object of their focus or their task is gone, and now their sole focus is you. It's like, what? Like, what is your orders? Like, what do you mean? Like, I've delivered dirt. Now what? What do I do? What do I do? It's crazy.
Probably, I don't know if they actually even belong in the monster manual. I think they're just they're NPCs to me. I've never used them as like, I've never rolled a Modron encounter.
Yeah, there should be more like so when everything is running smoothly, the Modrons shouldn't be of much interest. They're just background stuff going on, like the Doozers in Fraggle Rock. It's when they go haywire, like when their programming just gets disrupted. That's when they're more interesting, because then they become more like
maybe that's what he means by being his least favorite. Maybe they're not really a monster, so they don't belong in the monster manual. So that could be his point to it.
Yeah, there's more interesting. Like, they don't represent the plane of Mechanus very well. Mechanus is better represented by the Formian ant people and stuff like that, I think. Yeah, insects and hives.
All right, Rodney Sweet. Favorite is the Rust monster. They are low levels fighters' worst nightmare, especially if they don't have much gold. His least favorite is oozes and jellies. You've got to deal with all the weird resistance effects, vulnerabilities. It always seems cheap to be used on you, and can be extremely deadly at low levels.
All of this is true.
I like it. Yeah, I think that's also their strength.
Yeah. It's a matter of preference. I like oozes, but I don't like them overdone. I like fresh ooze.
I mean, have you I use them all the time. I've almost killed my players with oozes so many times. So if I'm explaining to you, you go into a sewer, and this sewer is incredibly clean. Like, and there is a floating sword in the middle of the sewer, then that's on you.
Yeah. Let's see. Like, it's always like they're never obvious in the environment for me. So the player characters have encountered that classic scene from Conan the Barbarian, the second one, Conan the Destroyer, where the wizard is reading the arcane runes on the illusionary wizard tower to get inside. So he's trying to decipher a magical lock, whereas Conan's about to jump up and try lifting the thing anyway, using his enormous strength. But imagine he's reading across the stone glyphs, and then he stops and he says, "Oh, they've disappeared," and then he notices that the rock is moving.
Hang on one
It's
sec.
like,
I'm just going to close my door. It started raining and it's coming into the room. Hang on.
all right.
One sec. Sorry.
Yeah,
You're
we're due for some torrential rain here as well today. We've got a heavy rain warning in the Bay of Plenty. It's kind of like our version of a winter
Sorry
blizzard.
about that.
So yeah, and what I'm saying is like in the environment, they're really good if you have them not obvious. So the grey ooze is there, but it looks like just the rock has turned into smooth rock, and then you notice that it's moving. Green ooze is a classic because it turns you into green slime turns you into more green slime, but it's easily dealt with. It can be burnt off you or washed away with water and stuff. So they're kind of one-trick ponies, and they're really deadly if you're at their mercy, but otherwise they're easily avoidable.
I had one that ate a duergar, and then it could use the duergar's ability to basically double its size.
Oh wow!
Yeah, so it was a giant one. Yeah, I like oozes. I use them all the time. I like the movie The Blob though as well. That's one of my favorite old school horrors. So
they're really easy to apply different stuff to. Like an ooze is just a template, and then you add its particular resistances, its particular types of thing that it eats, its particular ecology traits. Like the delicious pink ooze, for instance, is the idea of like, what if in and of itself it's safe and it's got this particular method of eating, which is to make you spray and make you smell delicious. Therefore, you attract predators. You get eaten, all the predators get destroyed by you. Therefore, free food for the ooze. It doesn't have to do anything. All it does is spray you and then wait and follow you.
Yeah.
That doesn't require any intelligence on the ooze's part. So
what about? Oh, you go. Sorry.
So yeah, and then you've got blood fire oozes and dragon blood oozes and stuff. So add an aspect of a different plane of existence or a different creature, and then add that like a flavor to the ooze. So it's like they're as versatile and flavorful as Jello, and there's always room for Jello. Always room for oozes.
What about the rust monster?
One trick pony, really, but like, who doesn't love a bunch of goblins riding rust monsters to scare the piss out of a high level party?
Or a swarm of baby rust monsters.
Yeah,
as well.
Yeah. What was the other thing I was thinking of? Oh yeah, like if you had kobolds who are priests of oozes, one of the things is you have the ooze fill up a bubble of lighter than air gas with enough oxygen in there so that the goblin can breathe, and it floats over and then pops the bubble to drop down on you with a spray of ooze acid at the same time. There you go. Right. You can use that one for free.
Some of these are controversial. Nick Fossum. My favorite monsters are the gelatinous cube and the mimic. In second edition, they were great for surprising players, like when the cube was nearly invisible in low light, leading to creepy encounters and sudden who turned out the lights moments. And the mimic is just a classic, iconic dungeon foe, thanks to its long history in the games. My least favorite is the intellect devour. These creepy brain creatures are a nightmare for anyone with an intelligence of 10 or more, since they swap bodies with their victims. Plus, it's hard not to feel sorry for them, as they are created by mind flayers just because they were bored or needed a fresh snack.
Yeah, basically they're the mind flayer equivalent of a Big Mac. So they're poor nutrition, but they are basic nutrition. So they're an MRE as far as the mind flayers are concerned, and also like they clean up the floor. They're like a corgi.
I had a kennel. I used a mind flayer kennel, so they were all in cages, and I had the players were going down a sewer, and I had a plate, a trapdoor plate that every time they stood on a little door would open, and it would release one intellect devourer at a time out of the hole, and it would just plop into the sewer water and then like skitter towards them. And then when they got into the room, it was like basically a whole kennel, and then I had everyone open, and all the intellect devourers jumped out at once. Like I kind of tried to use them like face huggers.
You can go really crazy overboard with creativity because like every single mind flayer is a mad scientist, right? So they experiment with living creatures. And so you've got the intellect devourers who've got a personality, they've got an intelligence. And so why not make it so that every single intellect devourer is a particularly emotional template? It's a flavor. So the mind flayer that you've broken into his personal lab, has been experimenting with breeding particular emotions into the intellect devourers and then assembling them in a box of 20 and then exporting them as a product, like a pet breeder. Like, so you've got these minions like sleepy, grumpy, morose, and
the more wrinkly they are, the more intelligent they are as well. I use so my mind flayer, he's basically in the sewers and he's using intellect devourers to take over like predominant people in Waterdeep. So he's basically sending them up into like nobles' toilets to or
the privy bandit.
Yeah.
When you least expect it.
That's why he's in the sewers. So he's like in the sewers, just sort of like going underneath like the nice areas of Waterdeep and firing up these intellect devourers to sort of so he can start to build a network above ground.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense to me.
Yes, they are a little bit overpowered in that they can take over a player character, and that's stepping on the player agency and what's the board player supposed to do while the character's taken over.
It's a great table. It's a great table moment. As long as your players aren't too precious about their characters and they're down for it, and you can, I would do that. Like, okay, the rest of you need to leave the room for 5 minutes, and I would explain to the player, you are no longer you. This is what's happened. Are you down for it, or would you
that's
rather,
the key. Really, is to bring them on board and say, "Would you like to play this monster?"
Yeah. Would you rather? Do you want to play this monster? Do you want to play this out, or do you just want to roll a new character? So,
do you want to play the bad guy? Do you want to play a bad guy?
Hopefully, they're down for it, and then you bring everyone back, and he seems fine, and he's just got a new agenda.
a slight oozy discharge around the ears and nostrils. So I think a worse monster than the intellect devourer is the ghost in regards to possession, because it's almost impossible to stop the ghost from possessing somebody in D&D 5th edition, just purely mechanically.
You got Beetlejuiced.
Yeah.
Mimic. We haven't talked about the Mimic, really, have we?
Everybody loves Mimic. I don't trust anybody who doesn't like Mimics, honestly.
Have you used like multiple Mimics, like a Mimic, like as a town or like a society?
No, more like describing the basis of like a doppelganger society. Of like if I'm ever introducing something like that, it'll be multiple different shapeshifting species that are working together. Kind of like the movie The Thing, how the Thing is a shapeshifter, and it's like a cellular entity, so every cell is alive and self-aware sort of thing in that organism. And so you structure a mimic society the same sort of way. So the spaceship is alive and the components are alive, and they're all part of the same organism, which has turned itself into its own technology, which is totally alien to everything around them. And it's almost like that those sort of creatures, when they encounter monos like us who don't exchange their living substance, we're the threat. We're the alien ones to them. They don't want to be contaminated by our otherness, our non-connectivity, our isolationism.
I'd be interested to know is there a society of mimics? Like, is there a mimic commune of sorts?
Yeah. Well, there's always been. There's the metal master mimics, which are the ones that can emulate metal. The other ones are supposed to just be stone and wood. But there's always been a 50-50 whether a mimic can talk or not, speak in common. So there's always been intelligent mimics in the game. It's never been assumed that they're non-intelligent.
Microphone mimics?
Yeah.
Okay, Judas Webb. This is our last one. His favourite villain will always be the human. Not even demons can touch them for the sheer black villainy. Least favourite is probably the Drow, just too angsty.
Yeah, Drow have been done dirty. Like the true backstory of the Drow makes them kind of.
You always get that one player that wants to be the Drow, moody Drow rogue or the moody Drow assassin, and doesn't get on with anyone, and the murder hobo.
Yeah,
I've had a couple of like players that are murder hobos, and they've always been the Drow rogue. and they do tend into that angsty, dark, bad boy vibe. It depends how you play them. I guess the Dritz books are always going to be the template for me for the Drow.
Sorry, Driss, did you say?
Yeah, the Dritz books are always going to be the template. I've got a reverb.
Oh, that was just from my microphone. My headphones have cut out again. There we go.
Okay.
Back to normal again. So the Drow, they're very focused on around the religion of Lolth, and if you take that away and change their basic religion and basic structure of their society, they get a lot more interesting. And if you tie into their history of them being displaced from the surface and seeing their world, the surface world, as being controlled by invader fairy elves. So as far as they're concerned, the Feywild has invaded their surface land and driven them underground, and the surface world was once their. Them and the green elves, they owned it. But you look at dark elves and other world settings from Dungeons and Dragons, like Eberron and stuff like that, and they're quite different.
Yeah, Dragonlance is totally different.
Yeah.
Obviously, the thing with the Forgotten Realms Drow is it's a female-driven society.
Yeah. Because of that whole religion thing. But it'd be interesting if it wasn't that way. Like if there or there was an actual biological reason why they were matriarchal instead of just a religious one, a social religious one.
Yeah.
Like if the females were much larger and stronger, that'd be interesting. But
I've always preferred Jarlaxle over Dritz myself. I think he's
an interesting character. Yeah, mercenary, opportunist.
But humans, in fantasy and in real life, we are the ultimate villain.
Yeah. We're super adaptable, nasty, hyper-vigilant, aggressive, untrustworthy.
Short lifespan, mate. We're just trying to get
just
trying to get it while we can.
What's a primate going to do,
Fucking dwarfs and elves live hundreds of years, so
true. You got to get by any way you can. Bootstrap yourself to society, even if it means building on top of the ruins of what came before.
That's it for the questions.
Thanks, everybody. Keep them coming.
Yeah. Anything else you want to add?
No, but I would put to the viewers that if you have a request for a topic for a week's episode, that's probably the only way we're going to get Nacho narrowed down and nailed into doing a Warhammer 40k. Otherwise he'll probably get me talking about like RoboCop or something for an entire 2 hours.
Yeah, I can talk about RoboCop for 2 hours. We can have a trade-off. So do you want to do Warhammer next week?
Well, I'm just saying, I'm putting it to the viewers. We'll let the viewers decide.
We'll let people know. Yeah, I can. I mean, I'll talk about RoboCop if you want. I could talk about RoboCop for 2 hours easily. Do you remember they made that really do you remember there was a part in the was it the late 80s or the early 90s where they tried to make R-rated cartoons so RoboCop was a cartoon, and who else was there? Mr. T was a cartoon. Who else did we get there? Rambo was a cartoon.
Right. Yeah. Now we have the Rock and various other things.
Yeah. Anyway, off topic.
Yeah, no, I have nothing else. I have nothing else to add on Monsters. Really, just go and check out my channel. I've got close to 1,000 videos now. We're on the last 40 or so videos before I hit my 1,000.
Yeah, I would say plug your channel, but I've just fucking done that for 1 hour and 30 minutes.
Yeah, pretty much. And there are many other contemporary creators who also cover monster lore and stuff as well, and many who have come and gone.
Check out Fred's How to RPG. He does, if you're after more like how to run monster encounters, he does a lot of that. He specializes in the mechanic side of it. And obviously AJ's, if you're after the lore and the ecology,
Yep.
Yeah, I don't really have much else. It's just absolutely started pissing down here. Yeah, it's not a nice day. So I guess the dogs won't be going for a walk.
Sorry, dogs.
All right. Well, that's it from me. So, yeah, good night
And
from
that's
me.
it from, and good night from him.
I fucked that one up again, didn't I? Good night.
Good night.